Hello, welcome busy ants. Today, let's actually deep dive into the vote shares of Tamil Nadu elections in 2026. So, if you see here carefully, we discussed in the last video that the dominant parties of ADMK and DMK, along with the small regional parties, are actually combined are actually commanding more than 85% vote share. In 2024 parliament elections, the combined vote share of DMK and ADMK has actually fallen down to 68% when BJP has allied with other parties like PMK and AMMK, which means denting into a stronghold of 80% is actually possible. This is where Vijay has to draw inspiration from and has to actually restrict these vote share of combined ADMK DMK to less than 60%. Let us assume that TVK is somehow getting 30% by actually restricting the other major parties and its alliances to 60% or less than 60%. In this likely scenario, the DMK and ADMK, if they are restricted to 58%, and the other parties like Nota and NTK are actually getting 10%, in this case where TVK would actually get 32%, beating that particular seat or maybe the overall seats with first past the post at 32%. Is this likely to happen? How the vote shares would actually convert to seats is where will be an interesting point. For this, we'll actually see or take 2024 elections as a starting point to see how they're going to progress. Before that, let's actually see the party wise vote share and alliance wise vote share in the last two assembly elections in 2016 and 2021. In 2016, the party wise vote share looked like this: ADMK got 41% and DMK got 32%. Alliance wise, if you see, ADMK went alone and got 41% and DMK got 39%. In 2016, there is actually a third and fourth force available as alliances, which means from 2016, it's more or like a four corner fight. In 2021, the party wise vote share looked like this: ADMK was down from 41% to 33%, and DMK rose to 38%. As an alliance, DMK got 45% of vote share, forming the government. ADMK and its alliances were restricted to 40%, with winning around 70 seats. So, from this, let's actually kind of derive some starting point for all these alliance parties in 2026. In 2026, based on the vote share of 2024 parliament elections, DMK, ADMK would start at 37% and DMK would start at 50%. Assuming that Seaman would actually retain his 8% vote share, he will start at 8%, and TVK as an untested player would naturally start at 0%. So TVK will definitely get some votes and some vote share. Where would they get them from? So let us assume TVK is actually tending into some minority vote share. Assuming it actually captures Congress, VCK, CPI, CPM vote share to start with, they would actually get some more or less 18%. In that case, ADMK would actually start at 35%, which is its own vote share of 21%, which is not likely to reduce it below any further because that's the lowest point of that party in 2024 elections. Assuming minorities actually rallying behind Vijay, in that case, BJP would actually retain its own 11% vote share, which will add it to the alliance of ADMK. And other parties like AMMK and PMK would actually add 3%. In that case, it's starting point for ADMK alliance would be 35%. In that likely scenario, DMK would actually start with 27% of its own vote share and 5% of Congress and other national parties and 3% of other parties like DMDK, VCK, and IUML. In that case, their starting point would be 35%, which means Seaman would retain 8% and the revised starting point for TVK would be 18%. So, is there a likely scenario where TVK will win or maybe make an impact in these elections? If that is to happen, as discussed in the bar graph previously, he has to get more than 30% to beat the first past post system. We have derived some scenarios where TVK has its impact on the vote share and seat share. In a scenario where TVK were to get 35% of vote share, let us actually see how would actually they get to 35%. Assuming they get 17% of minorities votes, taking it apart from DMK and 18% from others, which would actually take them to 35%. Even in this case, ADMK would not lose below 35%. Only person or only alliance which would likely to lose in this scenario is actually DMK because minorities are actually being pulled from the DMK alliance. In that case, DMK would be restricted to 21%. How would they get into converted into seats? This is how the seat share would look like if DVK is actually getting 35% of vote share. ADMK would actually get 122 seats, forming comfortably the government, and DMK would actually be restricted to 3 seats, and TVK would get 109 seats. This would look like a highly extreme scenario, but this is a possible scenario if TVK is actually getting 35% of vote share. In a scenario where TVK is getting 30%, not 35, 30%, it would look like this. So, undisputably, if TVK were to get 30%, they will actually pull minority votes from DMK, and if they get 13% of others' votes to their side, in this likely case, also ADMK would not go below 36%, and the seat share would look something like this. ADMK would get 164 seats across majority in all the getting majority of seats in all the regions except for Delta, and DMK would get 70 seats with Delta being 30 seats as more than 32 seats as a dominance there, and TVK, despite getting 30% of vote share, may not win all any seat at all. I mean, there is a likely scenario where they can get couple of seats where Vijay is actually contesting. But if they are not making more than 30%, or as I was discussing in the first past post scenario, more than 30%, as in 32%, is the minimum point where they has to get to win the seats. Despite getting 30%, there is a likely chance they may not get any seats. Even in this scenario, ADMK stands to win. Let us look at another scenario where TVK is only getting 20% of vote share, which means minorities are still rallying behind Vijay and others are not rallying with Vijay. Even in that case, ADMK would actually get 121 seats and DMK would get 113 seats, which means 20% of Vijay vote will actually not get him any seats, and DMK would stand 113 seats and ADMK would get 121 seats. Let's actually look into another scenario where let's bring Seaman into consideration. Let us assume Seaman is getting 10% of vote share and TVK is getting 25%, which means TVK and NTK put together are actually at 35%. Even in this scenario, ADMK would actually get 36% vote share and DMK would get around 28. How this would be converted into seats? ADMK would get 152 seats, DMK would get 82 seats, and TVK and NTK may not get any seats despite winning 35% of vote share. In a likely scenario where TVK and NTK are restricted to below 20%, this is the actual scenario which DMK would or look for or would like to have, because in this scenario they're actually not losing significant of minority votes, and they would actually retain 40% of vote share as an alliance. DMK would gain up to 40% and ADMK would actually get 39%. Converting this into seats, it would look like this: ADMK getting 70%, 70 seats, DMK getting 164 seats. This looks like a 2021 scenario. This is what DMK is actually looking for. So, what do you think? In all these five scenarios, which one is highly possible? Let's actually look into the next video by seat and by region, which seat will be won by which party, and how TVK is actually winning or actually impacting the seat share and vote share of dominant alliances of ADMK and DMK. Subscribe and follow for more detailed analysis. Thank you.